Ex-wife's call revealed a hidden truth. Our son needs your blood to survive. His life-changing battle begins. Jack sat on the edge of his bed, the early morning chill biting at the warmth of his blankets. He could smell the faint scent of freshly mowed grass coming through the window, a reminder of the suburban life he once found comfort in. And then the phone rang, shattering the peaceful stillness of the morning. "Jack." Sarah's voice echoed through the speaker, desperation clear as day. "It's Ben. He needs a blood transfusion. He's the only match." The world around Jack faded, his heart racing faster than a summer storm. The divorce, the arguments, the heartache, they all felt like distant memories, overshadowed by the immediate panic. How could they be here, trapped in this nightmare? A son crying for help, and the connection that could save him bound up in the messy threads of a broken family. The memories crashed over him like waves. Ben's laughter ringing through the yard as he chased fireflies, echoing from summer barbecues where Jack flipped burgers while Sarah teased him about his cooking skills. Those were fragments of a life filled with hope, dreams woven tightly with laughter and love. But here and now, everything felt like a heavy weight hanging over him. He threw on a jacket, feeling the urgency pulse through him like adrenaline. Every step toward the hospital felt heavier, as guilt wrapped around him tighter than the chill in the air. He wasn't just racing against time. He was racing against the ghosts of what had been. Arriving at the hospital, the neon lights greeted him like a pitiless spotlight. The sterile scent of antiseptic hung in the air, and laughter rang out from the children's ward. He clenched his fist, recalling how innocent and alive Ben had been, and how much he wanted to be the father his son deserved. Was he still that man? Would Sarah let him be? Faced with Sarah in the waiting room, he felt the tension pulse visibly between them. Their shared looks were thick with weight, years of hurt wrapped up in barbed wires, and they were forced to untangle it for Ben's sake. Each conversation was a tightrope walk, balancing the delicate line of caring for their son, while remembering the jagged fractures of their past. "What are we doing, Jack?" Sarah's voice barely broke the silence that stretched like a rubber band between them. I'm trying to do what's best for him," he replied, feeling the weight of their misplaced anger, unresolved resentments weaving between their words. Could he forgive her? Could she trust him even after all they had been through? Before he could answer, the nurse stepped in, professional and calm, with paperwork dancing in her hands. "We need to get started." "Wait," Sarah interrupted, her eyes locked on Jack. "There's something else we need to discuss." Her next words hung in the air, heavier than they should be, and he braced himself, feeling his heart drop. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The walls of their past loomed large as Sarah's revelation settled in. It felt like the ground beneath him was shifting, and he wondered if he could even stand, let alone fight for the chance to become the father he had always wanted to be. Could this moment be the bridge they needed to cross together? But then, an icy thought crossed his mind. Was he too broken to be the hero Ben needed? Each second felt like a ticking clock, amplifying their choices as Jack stood on the precipice of something that could change everything. He glanced at Sarah, searching her eyes for answers, unsure if he would find clarity or chaos instead. Jack's heart raced as Sarah's eyes held his like a lighthouse in a storm. This wasn't just about Ben anymore. It was about them, the pieces of their fractured family, and the chance to rebuild something that had long been lost. "Jack," Sarah breathed, as if struggling under the weight of their history. What if this is more than just a medical emergency? What if we don't have much time left?" The words hit him like a brick, and he felt them reverberate in his bones. His throat went dry. What did she mean? The look of fear in her eyes said she was serious. What revelations could possibly follow in a moment like this? "Ben's condition is serious," she pressed on as though sensing his hesitance. "The doctors are telling us he might only have days if we don't act quickly." With each word she spoke, reality struck deeper. Jack's mind raced to the what-ifs. What if he was too late? What if he hesitated? And your blood type? She swallowed hard, her eyes turning glassy. What if it doesn't just save Ben? What if it changes everything for us too? Jack felt a cold sweat trickle down his spine. The very thought of reaching out to Sarah, to explore the possibility of rekindling their relationship, felt almost impossible. The hurt and anger still pulsated between them like an open wound, but the thought of his son suffering lit a fierce determination in his chest. As if reading his mind, Sarah stepped closer. I know we both have baggage we carry, but Ben needs us. Maybe, just maybe, this is a chance for both of us to be better. Jack glanced at the floor, battling conflicting emotions. Did he dare hope for this? Could they really find a way back together, a way to fight for their son as parents? I never wanted this to be how we reunited, to be in a hospital waiting room, he said, frustration mingling with hope. But I want to be there for him. I want a second chance. Tears glistened in Sarah's eyes, and the sight squeezed his heart. Was it pity or understanding? In that moment their shared pain almost felt like a bond. Before they could linger too long in the weight of the unspoken, the nurse returned, clipboard in hand, with an urgency that seemed to demand action. We're ready for you, Jack. We need to start the transfusion as soon as possible. Giving Sarah one last look, Jack nodded, swallowing down the flood of emotions threatening to spill over. For Ben, he whispered, feeling the resolve wash over him. Always for Ben, Sarah replied, her voice steady as they both stepped into the room. Inside, the sterile light offered little comfort. Ben lay on the hospital bed, looking smaller than ever, attached to machines that beeped in sync with Jack's heartbeat. The sight broke him. Hey buddy, he said softly, kneeling beside Ben. The boy's eyes flickered open, dull with fatigue but brightening with recognition. Dad. Ben's voice was weak but filled with a childlike hope. I'm here, Jack assured, choking back the storm of emotions. I'm going to help you, I promise. As the nurse prepared the transfusion, Jack held Ben's small hand in his own, squeezing it gently. A flood of memories rushed through him, the laughter, the games, that night he taught him how to ride a bike. This was the promise he needed to keep, not just to Ben but to himself and Sarah too. But beneath that promise lay an unsettling thought. Was helping Ben enough to heal the wounds of the past? Could this moment serve as a bridge? Or would it simply be another chapter marking what could never be regained? As the transfusion began, both Jack and Sarah stood together, watching and waiting, hope mingling with fear. They were stepping onto uncertain ground, caught between shadows of the past and the promise of a different future. Jack, Sarah suddenly gasped, staring at the screen of vital signs. Look. He turned just as alarms blared, snapping their focus to Ben, whose heart rate started to spike. Panic surged back into his veins. Would their bridge to healing come crashing down before they even crossed it? The doctors rushed in as confusion turned to dread. Nothing could be worse than losing their son now. Jack's heart pounded in sync with the alarms, each beat echoing a desperate prayer for Ben's survival. Stay with us, buddy, Jack screamed, feeling Sarah's hand grip his tighter. They were both terrified, but in that moment, they found solace in each other's presence amidst chaos. What would it take for their son to survive, and could they truly heal the rift between them in the face of this crisis? The weight of their world hung in the balance, and all Jack could do was pray for a miracle. The chaos in the room intensified as the doctors rushed in, their faces a blend of urgency and determination. Jack felt small against the flurry of movement, his heart racing faster than ever. Each alarm sounded like an alarm bell for his soul. Clear the area, one of the doctors shouted, pushing Jack back slightly but not breaking his hold on Ben's hand. Jack could feel the warmth of his son slipping away, leaving him gripped by a fear he had never known. Please just fix him, Jack pleaded, his throat tight, watching as they worked rapidly on Ben. Nurses surrounded the bed, and Jack could barely keep up with the medical terms being tossed around. Each word felt like a knife, cutting deeper into his heart as Ben's condition declined. Heart rate is too high, the lead doctor declared. We need to stabilize him quickly. Dad, I'm scared. Ben's weak voice broke through the noise, pulling Jack back into focus. He looked into his son's eyes, those familiar, deep pools filled with worry. I'm right here, buddy. I promise you're going to be okay. His voice was stronger than he felt, and as he spoke those words, he realized it was partly for himself. He needed to believe it. As the doctors continued their efforts, Sarah stood frozen at the foot of the bed, her gaze shifting between Jack and Ben. The fear etched on her face mirrored Jack's own, but there was something else in her expression too: determination. "Jack," she said suddenly, a plan dawning on her face as if a light bulb had lit up in her mind. "Your blood type is the same as Ben's. We need to get this done. You can save him." Jack's heart raced at the thought. "But..." "No buts," Sarah interrupted firmly, stepping closer. "If we don't do this now, we could lose him." The seconds ticked by as they both gazed at their son, whose condition seemed to falter with each beat of the machines. Jack could feel the urgency coursing through him like electric shockwaves. The fear of losing Ben transcended everything else: the hurt, the anger. All the history between them surrendered to one shared priority: their son. With a newfound determination, Jack nodded at Sarah. "Let us do it." The nurse quickly prepared the necessary supplies, ushering Jack toward the adjacent room. His heart thudded against his ribs as fear curled in his stomach. What if he couldn't help? "Stay strong for him, Jack," he reminded himself aloud as he sat down. The panic in the waiting area faded away, replaced by a focused clarity. As the nurse took his blood, a thought struck him: this act wasn't just about saving Ben. It felt like an enormous shift, an opportunity to mend the fractures within their family. Jack glanced back at the door leading to Ben's room. Did this mean they were moving toward healing? After the extraction was done, the nurse assured him, "You're doing the right thing. Just a few more moments and we'll move your blood straight to Ben." Her calmness was like a soothing balm over his nerves. "Can I see him?" Jack asked, suddenly feeling desperate for connection. The nurse hesitated, looking down the sterile corridor before answering. "Just for a moment. Could help." He followed her to the room, his heart swelling as he caught sight of Ben, his son battling to hold on. The machines beeped steadily, and he could see how frail Ben had become. "Hey buddy." Jack stepped up close, brushing a hand against Ben's head. "I'm right here and I'm going to help you." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she entered behind him, and she took his other hand. "We're together in this, Ben. Just hold on for us." Ben's eyes fluttered open wider, a flicker of hope igniting there. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, kiddo. We're gonna get through this." But beneath his comfort, doubt still gnawed at Jack. Would they really make it through? What if this blood didn't save Ben? What if everything fell apart again? As medical staff continued around them, a heavy silence wrapped their little family in a fragile cocoon, where hope and fear fought for dominance. In that moment, Jack felt a spark of resilience. Maybe this was the start, not just for Ben but for them as a family. Maybe healing could begin if they survived this. And then, just as hope burgeoned in his chest, another alarm rang out, sharp and jarring. Jack's heart sank as he turned toward the monitors, dread flooding through him yet again. "What's happening?" Sarah's voice quivered as they both glanced at the frantic activity in the room. And suddenly, everything hung on the precipice. What awaited them beyond this moment? Would they face despair or find strength in unity? The urgent chaos swirled around them as Jack clung to his son's hand, praying that the bridge they began to build would withstand yet another test. The air in the room thickened with tension. The rapid beeping of the machine seemed to mirror the racing thoughts in Jack's mind. He was torn between desperation and a flicker of hope, a shaky foundation built on the belief that his blood might just save Ben. The nurses flew past with supplies, their faces a mixture of calm professionalism and urgency. They were locked in a battle against time. Jack's eyes darted back to Ben, the child he had watched grow, the boy who attacked life with infectious joy. His heart sank further at seeing the frail body that had once been full of life. The little chest rose and fell unevenly, each breath a reminder of the fragility of existence. "Stay with us, Ben," he whispered, squeezing his son's hand tighter as if to transfer strength through their connection. "Dad." Ben's voice trembled, but it shattered through the chaos like glass. "I don't want to die." The fear in his son's gaze pierced Jack to his core. "You won't. You're a fighter," Jack replied, his heart heavy with the weight of truth he wasn't sure they could overcome. The lead doctor's voice broke through the din. "We need to start the transfusion now. Prep the 4. We're running out of time." Jack felt Sarah's grip tighten around his hand. Her warm presence was a counterbalance to the dread that threatened to consume him. "You're doing everything you can," she breathed as if reading his mind. "We owe it to him, Jack." The sharp focus of the medical team shifted momentarily as they prepared Ben for the blood transfusion. The room buzzed, but time felt suspended. Jack's breath hitched as he realized that all he could do was watch, helpless in the face of this storm. It was a cruel twist, a father offering his essence, but unable to shield his son from the pain. As they prepared Ben and connected the foreline to the blood bag, Jack felt a shiver run through him. He was terrified of the unknown. Would this work? What if it didn't? Would it shatter whatever fragile bond was beginning to form with Sarah? I'm scared too, Jack, Sarah said softly, as if she could sense the storm brewing within him. But we have to believe. We have to stay strong. He nodded, gripping her hand as the doctor injected Ben with the precious blood. The time felt like an eternity, and Jack could feel the weight of each second that ticked away. Would the blood coursing through Ben help him? Would it stabilize his heart rate, bring life back into his pale cheeks? The monitors chimed softly at first, but then a gradual shift occurred. The blaring red lights dimmed. Heart rate is stabilizing, one of the nurses announced triumphantly, and a wave of cautious relief washed over Jack. But he couldn't fully exhale, not yet. Not until he saw it in his son's eyes. Ben, you hear me? He said, urgency threading through his words. Just hold on. We're fighting this together. Ben nodded slowly, fear still clinging to his brows, but a flicker of something else, a spark of hope danced in his eyes. Jack leaned in closer, whispering promises of ice cream, of weekends at the park, of everything that awaited them once they made it through. Each word a lifeline thrown out into the murky waters of fear. Then the alarms went silent, the doctor looking stunned, and the tension in the room mutated into disbelief before blooming into cautious hope. A nurse stepped forward. He is stabilizing for now. But just as Jack allowed himself a sliver of hope, an eerie sound filled the air, the unmistakable sound of more alarms. This time it was a different pitch, signaling trouble, urgency. The entire medical crew snapped into action, and Jack's heart dropped again. What is happening? Sarah gasped, gripping Jack's arm as they both stared at the monitors. Jack's breath caught in his throat. He wanted to ask if they had really been through the worst of it, or if this was just the beginning of a long, arduous fight. Would they ever come out on the other side? Or was this a false spark of hope before the storm yet to arrive? Jack's heart pounded, each beat echoing against the panic building inside of him. He squeezed Ben's hand tighter, desperately wishing he could shield his son from whatever was coming, clinging to the hope that love could outweigh the chaos. But as the doctors flooded into the space again, one thought consumed him: could this be the moment everything changed, or were they simply on the edge of a new nightmare? The chaos in the room intensified as the doctors surrounded Ben, their faces a whirlwind of urgency. Jack's eyes darted between the medical team and his son, feeling helplessness grip him like a vice. The alarms blared louder, drowning out individual voices, yet Jack could hear Sarah's quickening breaths as she mirrored his anxiety. Stay calm, a doctor barked, pulling out a new set of syringes. We need to assess his vitals immediately. Jack's heart raced. Each second felt like an eternity. What was happening to Ben? Had the transfusion caused complications? He squeezed Ben's hand tighter, his knuckles white. We're right here, buddy, Jack shouted, trying to inject strength into his voice. What's wrong? Why are they acting like that? Ben's voice was barely above a whisper, strained and laced with fear. Jack longed to shield his son from reality, to wrap him in a cocoon of safety. They're just making sure you're okay, Jack said, but doubt crept into his mind. What if this was it? The thought felt like a dagger. They assessed Ben's charts, murmuring technical jargon Jack couldn't grasp. He glanced at Sarah, searching her eyes for answers, for the comfort he needed. But hers mirrored his fears, reflecting the shadows that loomed over them both. Without warning, one of the nurses shouted, "His blood pressure is dropping." Jack's breath hitched. The frantic energy in the room felt suffocating. No, he whispered, closing his eyes. He felt Sarah's hand slipping into his, squeezing it as if she could transfer her calm to him. Then, amidst the flurry, a familiar voice cut through the noise. His ex-wife, Ellen, stepped into the room. Her eyes widened at the sight, at the chaos unraveling before her. What is happening? She gasped, her voice trembling. Jack felt the tension spike even further. Ellen, he started, but the emotions tangled in his throat. She had been an important part of Ben's life, but their past was tangled, fraught with sorrow and misunderstandings. "Get out!" he barked, not wanting her chaotic energy to seep into the already fraught atmosphere. "Jack, I need to know," Ellen insisted, stepping closer. "What's wrong with our son? He needs the right blood type, Ellen. He's in critical condition." Pain coursed through Jack as the urgency of the situation overtook old grudges. This wasn't about them anymore. It was about Ben, their little boy. "Did you even check his blood type?" Jack shot back, desperate. "What if there's a complication? I hope the blood I donated is a match, or we won't know until it's too late." Each word from her felt like a relay of hope and dread. Jack struggled to maintain composure. "We don't have time for this." Then the lead doctor turned sharply. "We might need another transfusion. Is there any chance you can provide Ben's blood documents?" Ellen's face transformed, determination settled in her features. "I have them. I'll get them." Should I even trust her? Jack thought, emotions bubbling, but a flicker of hope stirred within him. If she had the documents, if there was a chance. "Ellen, hurry," Sarah urged. As Ellen dashed out of the room, the doctors returned their focus to Ben. Jack felt torn. Anxiety waged war against the rising flicker of that ever-elusive hope. Would their combined strengths be enough to bring him back? "No, no, no," Jack murmured, willing the chaos to recede. He looked back down at Ben. "You hear me, buddy? You keep fighting. You're stronger than this." But then another alarm flared. The doctor's brow furrowed. "We're losing him." Jack's heart shattered anew. "Please, no," he whispered, watching the frantic effort unfold before him. Desperation bled into him as he realized he could either crumble under the weight of fear or fight alongside his son until the very end. He chose the latter. "Don't you give up on me, Ben," Jack shouted firmly, his voice echoing amidst the medical turmoil. The room spun, time felt warped, and Jack found himself at the precipice of a new reality. Would the blood save his son? Would they pull through together? Or was this the bitter end of a long, painful battle? As the doctor barked orders, Jack held his breath, waiting for salvation or despair. "Ben strong," someone said softly nearby. "We just need to believe." And as Jack looked around him, he realized it wasn't just their lives that hung in the balance, it was the very essence of family and love being tested in ways he had never imagined. But would they find a way through, or would the bond they fought so hard to rebuild shatter one last time? The room was a whirlwind of sounds and emotions, each heartbeat echoing like a drum in Jack's ears. He squeezed Ben's hand tighter, feeling the warmth slowly ebb away. The doctors were focused, their movements precise yet frantic, as they navigated through the thick haze of tension that clung to everyone. "His oxygen levels are stabilizing," a nurse's voice rang out, a beacon of hope amid the storm. But Jack didn't dare share that flicker of relief. Every moment felt like a tightrope walk over a chasm of despair. Suddenly, the door burst open and Ellen rushed back in, breathless, her hands clutching a bundle of papers. "I got them," she exclaimed, her eyes wild but focused. Jack's stomach twisted. The sight of her returned his anger, but he forced himself to push it aside. This was about Ben. "Give it to the doctor," Jack urged, his voice strained. "Just please hurry." He watched as Ellen handed the documents over. The lead doctor flipped through the pages, urgency rippling through him as he scanned the details. "I need to know if the blood is a match," the doctor said, his brow furrowing deeper with each passing second. The nurse next to him was already typing up potential transfusion plans on her screen. Jack felt a sense of impending doom creeping back, the shadows stretching around every corner of his mind. "Do you even know what type you are?" Jack shot toward Ellen, voice tense. Anger simmered under his skin, memories of their tumultuous past bubbling to the surface. But he tamped down the resentment. What they went through didn't matter now. All he could focus on was saving their son. Ellen hesitated, her lips parting to respond, but no words came out. Instead, she turned to the doctor. "I'm positive, but it might not matter if he's getting what he needs. If the blood type I send him match." Jack couldn't finish the thought. His throat constricted painfully, feeling trapped between the tangible fragility of life and the weight of the past. He just wanted to scream, to shake both of them until they all woke up from this nightmare. "They have to get it right," Sarah whispered, her fingers trembling as she touched Jack's arm. He could only nod, feeling the joint pressure, the collective fear binding them together. The doctor turned to them then, his expression hardening. Prepare for another transfusion. Time is not on our side. Jack felt his heart plummet. The gravity of their situation hit him like a freight train. He focused back on Ben, his little boy lying there, too thin and vulnerable among the sterile sheets. Please protect him, he whispered to whoever might be listening in the universe. He has so much to live for. But as the seconds passed, the alarms blared again. The doctor cursed under his breath and shouted for additional support. Jack, they're gonna do everything they can, Sarah said, her voice shaking but determined. We have to believe. Jack's eyes never left Ben. He reached out again, tracing a finger across his son's forehead. You're going to be okay, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. You just need to hold on. Fight, buddy. Suddenly, Ellen stepped forward, her eyes glistening with tears. I'm so scared, she admitted. How did we get here? Jack's gaze flickered to her. For a brief moment they shared a past. A relationship once filled with laughter and so much love. A pang of guilt washed over him. Could they have done things differently? Would they have been here at all if they fought harder for their family? I don't know, Ellen, he replied softly, grappling with the emotional storm within him. But right now we have to be strong for him. In that moment of connection he saw her not the ex-wife, but a mother, someone who needed hope just as much as he did. Together, right? She whispered, searching his gaze. Together, he affirmed, feeling the weight of their history shift slightly. A tenuous bridge. But just as hope seemed to spark, the doctor cleared his throat, and the room felt chilled. Looks like we'll need time to get the results back. We can't transfuse until we know. Jack fell back against the wall, his world once again spinning. They were out of time and he had never felt so powerless. What if this was a journey into darkness? Is there nothing else we can do? He asked, panic creeping back in. Just keep communicating with him, the doctor replied, steely determination in his voice. He can hear you. Jack leaned closer to Ben, desperation tightening his chest. Hey Ben, you're my hero. Just hold on please. As silence enveloped the room, an overwhelming question pressed against Jack's heart. If they could find a way through this together, would their fragile bond of family survive the trials ahead? Or would it ultimately shatter under the weight of fear? Outside, the world continued, blissfully unaware of the storm raging within their small corner of existence. But for Jack, the fight was just beginning. The tension in the room thickened, each breath a labor as the clock ticked mercilessly on. Jack felt the helplessness wrap around him like a heavy cloak, stifling and suffocating. Ben lay there, the steady beep of monitors providing the only sense of rhythm in an otherwise chaotic world. It felt surreal, as if time itself had paused to witness their pain. Do you think he can hear me? Jack asked, the question barely more than a whisper. Wasn't ready for a response. The uncertainty threatened to eat him alive. Of course he can. Kids are resilient, Sarah interjected, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. But there was a quiver in her voice, a crack that betrayed her own fear. Jack swallowed hard. Resilient or not, he needs that blood now. He turned to Ellen. You're a positive, and what if he's not? What if she cut him off, her eyes wide with alarm? We can't think that way. They'll figure it out. We just have to stay positive. But that flicker of hope felt like a candle flame in a raging wind. Jack's frustration boiled beneath the surface, battling with the instinct to remain calm. Positive has never been what got us here, has it? Ellen recoiled slightly, vulnerability flashing across her features. I know. I want this to work. For Ben. For us. Their shared focus on their son brought a tear to Jack's eye. The binds of their painful past began to fade. Just a little. Replaced by a mutual longing to do something, anything to save Ben. As if on cue, the door opened again. Another doctor strode in, bringing with him an air of authority that filled the room with a renewed sense of urgency. I've spoken with the lab. They're cross-matching the samples now. We should have results shortly. Another voice joined from behind, a more familiar timbre rising in pitch. What's going on? Is he okay? It was Ben's grandmother, her face etched with worry. Jack's heart sank further at the sight of her. She looked so fragile, tethered to hope by a thread. Mom, we're waiting on test results for a transfusion. Jack's voice trembled, an edge of panic seeping through. What does that mean? she asked, voice breaking. Each word was lined with fear, cutting deeper. It means he might not get the blood he needs in time. He hated saying it. Hated that they were all gathered here, caught in this nightmare together. Don't say that, Jack, she said sharply, chin trembling. We need to believe. You need to believe. Her plea enveloped him, and Jack felt the weight of the room shift again. This time toward a collective resolve. Ben's grandmother reached for her son, squeezing his hand in a way that seemed to impart strength. Ellen joined Jack's side, squeezing his arm. What do you need me to do? She asked, her voice steady in a way that surprised them both. Stay with Ben. Talk to him, Jack replied, the words tumbling out in a rush. We need someone to keep that connection alive. As they spoke, Ben's breathing grew shallower, and fear gripped Jack tighter than ever. Come on, buddy, you've got to pull through this. I can't lose you. The impending results hung over them like a thundercloud, and silence crept in, heavy and awkward. Everyone's eyes darted between the sleeping boy and the door, waiting anxiously for news. Then, like a sharp spark cutting through darkness, the door swung open again. The lead doctor entered with a frown etched on his face, holding a folder that felt ominous in the fluorescent light. Jack, Ellen, we need to talk. Hope dulled to a whisper of uncertainty in Jack's chest. This was the moment they had anticipated. Yet the dread gnawed at him with each deliberate step of the doctor. As the walls of the room seemed to close in, Jack's heart raced. What had they just walked into? Would they find a way forward? Or would this moment change everything forever? Jack's heart thundered in his chest, each beat echoing the urgency of the moment. The doctor's face was stoic, a mask hiding what lay beneath. He glanced at Ben before returning his gaze to Jack and Ellen, his voice steady but laced with gravity. Ben's blood type is AB negative, he stated, pausing for a beat as if to gauge their reaction. Ellen, you're not a match. A cold knot twisted in Jack's stomach. The room began to spin, and all he could hear was the rhythmic beeping in the background, fading into a distant murmur. Ellen's face drained of color, her eyes wide with disbelief. What are you saying? She asked, a tremor in her voice. We need to act fast. We'll have to find a donor. But the doctor hesitated, his brow furrowing. The blood bank is running low on AB negative. It could take time to source a donor with an emergency transfusion. The words hit Jack like a punch to the gut. Time. That was the one thing they didn't have. He felt himself drowning in a wave of fear, helplessness clawing at him. What about you? He blurted, pressing forward. Can't you use your blood? You said you might be able to help. The doctor shook his head. I'm not a match either, Mr. Turner. We must wait. Wait. The word came out like a shout. We can't just wait. My son is in there fighting for his life. Jack's voice cracked, raw with emotion. Ellen's hand flew to her mouth, and she squeezed his arm tightly, grounding him, though they both felt the world crumbling around them. Look, I understand this is difficult, the doctor said, trying to maintain a professional tone. But we'll exhaust every option. We will reach out to our network. As the doctor spoke, Jack's mind raced. He thought of distant family members, friends, anyone who might be a match. Could he call his own estranged brother? The thought was just as painful as it was desperate. He felt Ellen's eyes searching his, full of worry but also that glimmer of hope they needed to hold on to. We can let these communities know online, Ellen suggested hurriedly. There are group pages, blood donor listings, maybe someone in the area can come forward. Do it, Jack urged, desperation fueling his voice. You and my mom should spread the word. Gather everyone. Make this urgent. Ellen nodded, determination rising to the surface. I will. I'll contact everyone, do whatever it takes. As she prepared to leave, Jack felt a weight pressing down on him. You need to make sure they know what he means to us. How important he is. They need to feel it. His own voice cracked again, revealing the depth of his fear. He didn't want to imagine life without Ben, their sweet boy whose laughter had brought joy back into their lives after so much pain. Time moved like molasses as he awaited Ellen's return, every second stretching into an eternity. The room felt unbearably tight, filled with the quiet anxiety of the family, both of Ben's parents constantly at the edge of tears. Suddenly, as if fate had intervened, the door swung open again. It was Ben's grandmother, with a glimmer of determination in her eyes. Jack, I just remembered there's someone I know. Someone who might be a match. Hope sparked like a firework inside him, filling the void of dread. Who? He asked, urgency lifting his voice. Your father's brother, your uncle. He has been through a lot, but his blood type is AB negative. Jack's chest tightened at the thought of his uncle. They hadn't spoken in years. Would he even help? Can you reach him? Now. Jack's voice was a rush, blending desperation with the flickering hope now ignited. Of course, she replied firmly, we can try, but we need to hurry. What if this was the lifeline they had been praying for? The thought made Jack's heart race with possibilities. But would he say yes? As they moved quickly to connect, Jack realized that even hope could sometimes feel like a heavy weight to carry. Would family ties hold strong enough to save Ben? The question lingered in his mind, echoing louder than the beeping monitors, a constant reminder that time was running thin. Jack paced the waiting room. The once sterile walls now felt like they were closing in. His heart raced with each tick of the clock, each second marking the urgency of their situation. Uncertainty gnawed at him. Would his uncle even want to help after all these years of silence? You don't think he'll refuse, do you? Jack asked, glancing toward his grandmother. Her expression was resolute, but that didn't quell the unease bubbling within him. He loves family. This might just remind him of that, she replied, her voice steadier than his own. Jack took a deep breath, trying to gather strength. It's worth the risk, isn't it? Absolutely. His mind raced back to the last time they'd seen each other, the chaotic family gathering where old grievances floated in the air like unwanted ghosts. Jack had been angry. He'd been young and foolish, letting old wounds dictate how he felt about his family. But now all that mattered was Ben. Call him, Jack urged, trying to quell the turmoil within. The moment stretched, every second felt like an hour. He could feel his chest tightening as he watched the hospital doors, every whoosh amplifying his anxiety. His grandmother nodded and pulled out her phone, fingers trembling slightly as she dialed. Jack leaned in closer, feeling a jolt of hope surge as the phone rang. But hope faded as it went to voicemail. Leave a message, he urged, desperate for any sign. His grandmother took a deep breath and spoke into the phone, her voice strong. John, it's me. Listen, I really need to talk to you. It's about Ben. He needs your help. Please call me back. As she hung up, Jack felt a wave of resolve wash over him. Now we wait, he said, attempting to fill the silence with optimism, but inside a storm raged. Ellen hadn't returned yet, and the longer she took, the more anxious he became. What if she encountered bad news? What if no one responded? Jack stepped out of the waiting room, seeking a distraction. He wandered the halls of the hospital, his thoughts flying to the nights Ben would crawl into his bed, clutching his stuffed bunny, whispering about everything and nothing. His heart ached at the thought of his sweet boy in pain. Then his phone buzzed in his pocket. It was Ellen. Jack, you need to come back now. His stomach dropped at the urgency in her voice. What happened? I've got something that could make a difference, she announced breathlessly. What is it? I contacted a couple of local groups and someone wants to help. They said they can come down for blood testing and possibly a donation. Ellen's voice trembled with hope. Are they a match? I don't know yet, but they're on their way. Jack closed his eyes for a moment, absorbing the news. A flicker of hope ignited. That's great. Every second counts, though. We need them here as soon as possible. He hurried back to the waiting room, where his grandmother still sat. Ellen's got leads. People are coming, he shared, unable to contain his excitement. But just as relief washed over him, the hospital door swung open, and a familiar figure stepped through. It was John, his uncle. Eyebrows furrowed, but he wore a determined expression. Jack, he said, voice steady. I got your message. Thank you for coming, Jack breathed, every emotion amplifying as he faced the man who had seemed a world away for so long. I heard Ben is in trouble. I couldn't just stand by. The two men locked eyes, and in that moment, all the past grievances faded. Jack's heart swelled with a mixture of gratitude and the burning need to protect his son. No matter their history, today they were united. Let us go save him, Jack said, grabbing his uncle's arm, the tightness in his chest easing just a bit. But now another challenge lay ahead. Would Ben truly be okay? Would they find the right match in time? As they rushed to the blood testing area, Jack's thoughts remained frantic and determined. Time was slipping away again. Could they beat the clock this time? The room felt electric with anticipation. The hum of life around them magnified as Jack and his uncle rushed toward the testing area. Each step echoed the urgency that pulsed through his veins. Jack's thoughts whirled around Ben, picturing his son's sweet face, fragile yet resilient. John took charge, his demeanor calm but focused. "We'll need to hurry, Jack. Every moment counts." Nodding, Jack followed closely behind, heart racing. They entered a small sterile room, filled with medical equipment that glimmered under fluorescent lights, stark and clinical. "Is this really happening?" Jack murmured, nearly breathless. "Just give me a moment. We'll find out if I'm a match," John replied, rolling up his sleeve, his determination a lifeline for Jack clinging to hope. As they waited, Jack couldn't help but steal glances at the clock on the wall, the hands ticking away like a countdown to disaster. "Ben needs you," he blurted out, his voice thick with emotion. "He needs all of us. Don't worry. We're here for him," John said quietly, his eyes betraying a flicker of vulnerability. Jack had spent years stifling the anger and disappointment he felt towards his uncle, but seeing him now, their purpose intertwining, their vulnerabilities laid bare, felt like a step toward redemption. Moments later, the nurse entered, ready to draw John's blood. Anxiety hung in the air as the needle pierced the skin. Jack felt a knot in his stomach, praying for a miracle. A few short minutes stretched endlessly as they waited for results that could mean everything or nothing. The silence was tangible, a weight that threatened to suffocate him. Jack closed his eyes, focusing on the sound of the clock ticking, hoping somehow it would remind him to breathe. Finally, the nurse returned, her expression unreadable. Jack's heart thumped loudly in his chest as she confirmed, "We have the results." In that split second, it felt like everything hung on her next words. "Your blood type is indeed a match." Relief washed over Jack like a tide, filling the empty spaces in his heart. "We can save him," he exclaimed, grabbing John's shoulder. John nodded, the tension melting from his features. "Let us do this." As they rushed back toward Ben's room, Jack's mind flooded with memories dancing in the living room, laughter echoing through the halls, and all the moments he wished he could reclaim now felt like fuel for his mission. Reaching Ben's room, the air was thick with intensity. The medical staff moved with purpose, the steady beeping of monitors underscoring the urgency in the room. When Jack and John stepped inside, they found Sarah at Ben's side, holding his hand, tears mingling with hope as she caught their gaze. "Is it true?" she asked, standing taller, anticipation shining in her eyes. Jack nodded vigorously, unable to form words. They had a chance. He felt like they were on the brink of something monumental. The doctor stepped forward, ready to coordinate John's transfusion. "Time is of the essence. Let us move quickly," he instructed. As John took his place at the bedside, Jack felt pride swell within him, not just for his son, but for his uncle who had stepped back into their lives when they needed him most. They were a patchwork family, woven together by love, resilience, and shared purpose. Jack took a deep breath, steadying himself as he held Ben's hand again. "You're going to be okay, buddy. We're all here for you." He leaned closer, feeling the warmth of his son's grasp, hoping it would be enough to bridge the gap all their years apart had carved. Ben stirred slightly, turning his head with effort. "Dad?" he whispered. "I'm right here, little buddy." Jack blinked back, tears fighting the ache in his heart as he brushed his fingers against Ben's hair. "Fight for us, okay?" Ben's eyes flickered with life, and Jack could see the promise of so many things to come. As John's blood flowed into Ben, past challenges began to fade, replaced with the hope of rebirth. Minutes felt like hours as they stood vigil. It wasn't just John's blood coursing through Ben's veins. It was a testimony of their struggles, their love interwoven amidst heartache and hope. Then, a change rippled through the monitors. The alarms that had danced with panic began to smooth, the beeping steadied. A cautious cheer melted through the sterile air. "He is stabilizing," the lead doctor announced, crossing the threshold from chaos toward calm. Jack glanced around the room, catching Sarah's teary smile, John's relief, and the gentle nod of understanding from his mother. They were a family, piecing together their broken hearts with each beat alongside Ben. He leaned down, brushing his lips gently against Ben's forehead, filled with an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "You'll be just fine, kiddo," he whispered. "We're stronger together." As they stood united, Jack finally allowed himself to believe. They could face anything, forever connected through the battle they had fought side by side. Hope had resurfaced, and it felt brighter than he had ever imagined. They had found a way forward, standing at the dawn of a new reality. And as each heartbeat resonated in the room, Jack knew they had all changed for the better. Now he turned to this journey of healing a fragmented family woven anew, ready to embrace the future with open arms. A future filled with laughter, love, and an unbreakable bond. And in that moment of clarity he realized what he needed to do next. Embrace it all. Now is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support makes all the difference.